Good afternoon and welcome to Rubbing Minds, what I like to call it the Christmassy edition. Compliments of the season to everybody, and thanks for joining us on Rubbing Minds on Channels Television. My name is Bimileke Oscar Onyeson, and of course I'm standing in for Ebuka, and well, it's a very special edition. Not only is it the last edition of the year, it is the Iyanda special, if I can use that word. Today is going to be totally dedicated to our guest, not because of who she is, but because of what she does, changing a life, one life at a time. And of course, we'll be talking about her foundation, why she relocated, and some other questions that I will throw at her last minute because it's live. She has no other option than to answer them. Thanks again for joining us. Hope the festivities have been good. Christmas was okay. Hope you've had enough light in your area. And if you haven't, well, there's always 2015. Okay, I'd like to, first of all, introduce my guest. She is a phenomenal journalist, a broadcaster, columnist, a blogger, and of course, the mind behind her company, which is, it's a very radical media company in terms of what they're doing and what she's achieved. But do not let me bore you with my very brief introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome Funmi Iyanda to Rubbin Minds. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I must say, one of the things that baffles me all the time is how you look, the way you look. I know you're almost like 90, and you still and you still look so good. But it's great to have you on the show.
You too.
And I'm a little big fan, big fan of yours.
Thank you. I love your name, Oluwagbemileke.
Yes.
Have you asked the story behind it?
Oh, there's a story. I don't want to bore everybody here, but it's basically Oluwagbemileke Ota, which is victory over the enemy. And I'm sure you've had your fair shares of victories this year.
Yes, absolutely.
You've been quite busy from New Dawn to that's New Dawn with Funmi, which obviously is what a lot of people know you by, and then you step down, and basically you went down the road of advocacy. You went down the road of an NGO which you set up, which is a Change Your Life Foundation. Tell us a bit about the foundation. Okay,
I mean, the way you say it, it sounds like I went from one thing to the other, but it's actually a way of looking at the world that I really encourage. I am a holistic person. I don't take wholes of parts. I take parts of a whole and live it. I think that's how we are really as a people and as a culture. So whilst we're doing New Dawn, Change Your Life had already started. It started as a project within Change Your Life and became a foundation actually when we stopped Change Your Life. Sort of all these things had always rolled one into the other. And through the years, people always thought that I worked for NTA. I have never worked for anybody in my life. I came out of university being quite clear-minded that I was unemployable.
Is it employable, or you didn't want to be a yes sir to anybody?
I didn't think, when I came out, I keep saying to guys that, they've forgotten how Nigeria has changed in a very short period of time. Because when I came out of university, there were no telcos. There were no, you either worked at the Nigerian Stock Exchange, or you worked as a civil servant, or you worked in one of the oil companies. I looked at all of them.
Or a lawyer or something.
Or a doctor or lawyer. And I was like, nah, it's not going to work. So I started my company quite early. I started my own company. The first company I registered was actually called Queens.
It was called what?
Queens Productions.
Queens Production. Okay,
Queens
let me jot that down.
And that was in 1996.
What happened?
Well, I thought that I wanted to create Queens. I wanted something that was female-led. I wanted an estrogen empire. And so I created
I've not heard that before.
Yeah, and since then I've had Queens Production, Funmi Iyanda Production, Ignite Media, Creation
That's
Television.
the latest one, Ignite Media.
Yes, and there's also Creation Television in London.
Okay. Now that brings me to London. Why did you relocate? Why not do everything you're doing here?
I don't see Cyrus relocating. What happened was that after New Dawn, I had this harebrained idea that I was going to take a 30-man crew across Nigeria. And by the time we had done 6 states...
31, by the way.
Yes, that's true. By the time we had done 6 states, I was exhausted and I was, to be honest, heartbroken. It's one thing to sit in a studio and imagine what the world is out there is like, but another thing to actually see it close up. I couldn't deal with what I'd seen. I needed to process it.
What had you seen?
I had seen the ways in which the policies that are being made or not being made was affecting the lives of people on a daily basis, and it had ruined many lives. A lot of those lives had come to me in the studio and I told their story. but it was still a distant way of telling their story. It's another thing to be right in their living room and try to tell the story and look into their eye and actually see what it meant. And also, I found that the way things were had made people really, really mean. People were mean, people were manipulative, people were, and my spirit is not really, I like people. And I have to have either empathy or understanding of why people are that way. I do not believe that anybody is evil. I think people sometimes do evil things.
Yeah, I'm going to quote from the movie Italian Job, where one of the star characters said that don't hate the person, hate the evil in them. Which basically means that everybody is good, but there's just that evil thing in everybody, and if you can go past that, then maybe it coincides with what you're saying.
This is what I say all the time, that we all are flawed, deeply flawed. And I like the way the Bible puts it. I particularly like the way the Yoruba Bible puts it, where it says, Oburu Jai. You know, it's like the heart of man is desperately wicked. Oburu Jai. I think that means that we all have capacity for good or bad. And I think what usually influences is the way we organize societies so that people don't become anxious and fearful. It's often fear, either understood or ununderstood, that leads people to act in a way that's sometimes evil.
And that actually brings me to your foundation. It has obviously taken a more robust form since you've been able to focus on it since New Dawn. I'll talk about New Dawn, but I wanted to focus on when was that spark, that moment when you were like, you know what, enough of all this. I need to take Cal to the next level. I need to impact lives. I don't just want to say the stories. I want to change the stories. When was that moment for you?
I'll say this. I actually went into television wanting to tell impactful stories. I did not want to be on television, by the way. I started by being on the back. I did not want to be on television. I started by being on the back end. I came onto television as an accident. You know, somebody didn't show up.
It's always somebody that doesn't.
Somebody didn't show up.
Never shows
and
up.
I was producing the show. I was writing and producing the show. And they said, you want to Oloshe now? You go do it. And I was so painfully shy. I was atrocious the first time. Atrocious. I was asking the questions and answering them. You know, and then after that...
Do you remember your guests on the show?
I remember my guest. My very first guest was a woman who was frying akara in Igbo Bifade.
Nice.
You know, and I just wouldn't let her talk. You know, so after that, I did a few more, and, you know, everybody was like, you're quite good at this, and the camera likes you.
So whose job did you take?
He wouldn't like me to tell who it was, whose job I took. You know, but then one thing just led onto the other. And so I always seen television and actually journalism and media as the fourth estate of the realm. I'm an old school journalist in that sense. I'm not
in a new form.
In a new form, because I will engage all forms of media.
Sure.
And so that's what I wanted to do. That's why I went onto television. And so the kinds of shows that I did were very much informed by my own intent. And that was telling people's stories as honestly, as truth to the, as I could. And so when we were telling, because of the kind of show I was doing, people would always come after New Dawn. We'd always have tens of women, sometimes up to 50 women waiting, and I would wait and I would talk to them. And so 1st of January, I think it was 2002, I said, look, I started arguing with the crew. I said, you know, 10,000 naira could change somebody's life. They're like, lie, 10,000 naira. So we decided it was going to be, try it out. Give 10,000 naira to a number of people and come back a year later. Let's see what they've done with it. I did not have the money. I had worked in, at that time, the governor-elect, who was Governor Bola Tinubu.
Okay.
I'd worked in the inauguration committee. I'd refused to take a job in government because I just wanted to see them go into government and step back. And so I went to his office and I said, Oga, please, I did this thing on television. Can you help? And he was like, why did you do these things? Anyway, I will take out of my salary. So he gave us 67,000 naira and we gave to 67 people. A year later, only one person came back. That person is still with us up until today.
Wait, 67,000, 67 people?
Yeah, 67. So
1,000 per person?
No, 67,000, 10,000 per person.
Okay.
That's 670,000.
Okay. I was about to say.
That's what he gave to us, 670,000.
TV does miss you, I will not lie. I think personally you should really, really come back. That's just my personal opinion. But Change Your Life Foundation, you've been recognized. You've gotten a lot of accolades. I don't want to bore you with the list of all that. You know all of that. But we have two young people whom have been impacted by your organization, Ngozi and Olamide. and we'll talk to them in a couple of minutes. But I wanted to just have an inkling to the structure you have. What exactly do you do on a day-to-day basis?
At the foundation?
Yes, at the foundation.
So when we started, it was sort of like an interventionist scheme. And so we had the scholarship scheme, because we went from that stunt that I pulled that time. I decided, look, let's make this thing more focused. All these women come in every day. Why don't we find, because usually there are women who'd come out of trauma, not just women, men too. But why don't we take the brightest child from every one of these families, give them scholarships, and not a one-off scholarship, but we stay engaged in their lives up until they finish school, follow through. And then also, all the people who were coming, who had like cancer, kidney disease and all of that, we went into a partnership with Lagos State government. We would refer the people to them. The government would pay for their treatments. So we started doing that. When, at that time, the chief of staff in Lagos State was the current governor, and he knew what we were doing. So by 2009, when I'd finished New Dawn, it was actually him who pushed Governor Baba. You know, he's very, very structured. He was the one who said, you know what, for me, you should institute this as a charity. I did not want to run a charity because I wanted it to be a social welfare unit.
You seem to get yourself in things you don't want to, but inevitably find yourself doing.
Because I'm a strong believer in institutions. And what I wanted, I did not want an alternative to government. I wanted government to work.
Is that what led to the annual Cow Live TV special?
Yeah, because, you know, I wanted to engage government. I wanted to ensure that, because what I'd really like is social welfare units within every government, in every state, in the federation.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you say you've achieved that?
Lagos State is doing quite well regarding that, because they have the Office of the Public Defender, they have the Women's Office, they have quite a number of those offices now. Okay. We would like other states also to do. I know that some other states are doing it. I'm not as conversant with them as I am with Lagos State. However, we Change a Life, we then became a full-fledged charity. We registered as a charity, we instituted a board, we employed an executive director, we employed project officers and an accountant, a full thing. And I stepped back as founder. So I just attend the board meetings and all of that and oversee. And if there's trouble, I'm like,
flying.
I fly. You know, I'm like, that's my baby.